Hey everybody, checking in to see how you're doing. Hope you're well on this fine, I think this is a Tuesday. We're past Monday now. Um, so my last video was about human observations in my living lab, my living human behavior lab here in my high-rise condo residential condo building, which I love. And I'm going to actually read you a poem that I wrote about the building here in a couple minutes. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the video. There were some interesting reactions and feedback. I would say mostly positive, but there was a little bit of uh, triggering, I suppose. So when we talk about knowing thyself and being connected with self and being able to stand on your own 2 feet, um, I think sometimes when we're feeling sensitive or we're not feeling super strong in where we are in life, um, our perspective is different, I suppose. So, perspective is an interesting thing. Actually, I find it really interesting and fascinating that we all have different perspectives, and of course we do. Why wouldn't we? So we're all different individual human beings. We all have different life experiences. We grew up differently. Even siblings in the same family, they have different experiences growing up in life, different birth order, the parent, depends on like the gaps in ages and how old the parents are, and is it firstborn or lastborn. And so there's so many factors that go into um, shaping us as human beings. And so that our experiences and our lens for how we see the world is shapes our perspective. So one of the things I noticed when I was parenting my kids when they were younger, and thinking about back to my childhood, when you're home and you're growing up, just being a kid and going through life and school and family and whatever you guys do as a family or not, that's normal. That's your normal foundation, and you don't even think about it. It's just that's what you do. You don't think about things unless and until you start going over to other people's houses and seeing how they do things. So, like maybe, I don't know, middle school-ish age, maybe having sleepovers at friends' houses, and you notice that they do things differently. Obviously the house is gonna likely look different furnishings or styles or whatever, but maybe their house is a little cleaner or a little messier, or more people in a smaller space or less people in a bigger space, or um, how the parents are involved, the siblings, if there are siblings involved, or their pets. And it's the imperceptible differences, like the texture that's woven into like the background of it, like maybe not obvious things, but just things that if you look back on it, that you might notice the differences. You're like, huh, that's kind of interesting. They have 2% milk instead of whole milk. I don't know, differences like that. So I think that when you start seeing other people's homes and you've got a little more life experience under your belt and you're noticing these differences, you're like, oh, interesting. Not everybody's life is exactly like mine. And maybe you notice that, maybe you don't. So as we grow into adulthood, and have a number of decades under our belts, um, our perspectives are can be interesting and very different. There might be things that we agree on and things that we don't agree on, and for various reasons. So when I put out a video, um, creating some content and there's somebody that reacts strongly to it, I find that interesting. And so clearly we're coming from very different perspectives. And um, and there's no judgment on that whatsoever. I do invite anyone that if they're triggered or there seems to be a hot button issue or something is upsetting, whether it's something that I have said or someone around you, someone in your life, if you feel triggered and reactive, I invite you to take a breath and maybe take a step back and look at that. Taking a breath, taking a step back, looking at that, pondering and considering why do I feel triggered? Why do I feel reactive? Um, there was a time in my life that I was very reactive. I happened to be married to a very narcissistic person. Um, and I wasn't very connected with myself at all. I was just going through the motions of life, um, busy, to-do lists, miles long. Um, yeah, just plugging through life, busy, and but I was super reactive, mostly with the now ex-husband. Um, Man, he could push my buttons and I would just fly off the handle. And if you know me as the calm of the storm. I am the queen of calm for the most part. I am human. But that period of my life was so stressful. And I every time I was reactive, I would kind of look at myself like, what are you doing? That is so not you. And yeah, through some therapy and some coaching, kind of figured out what was going on. But kind of looping back around, if you find yourself in a reactive place or you're feeling triggered, I mean, there are high triggering things that we're not talking about, but just like in general, daily life, a boss, a partner, a friend, a family member. Yeah, and I just invite you to take a breath and ground yourself, take a step back and just take a look at that. Um, we are we are in control of our faculties. And so if it feels like certain people are constantly getting a rise out of you, um, or putting you in a mood or whatever the case may be, um, that is uh, also an opportunity to connect more with self. When we're connected and grounded with ourselves, the external is a lot less likely to push our buttons. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm just thinking through that. The external and the internal. So when we are internally connected and strong and we know who we are, know thyself, um, the external really doesn't matter that much. We are not ruled by the external. So a boss, like, oh, you did a great job. Oh, you did a crappy job. Oh, I feel great. Oh, I feel terrible. Um, Again, or any of those people that are close to you in your life. Um, it's nice to get the accolades and the positive feedback, but if you're counting on that external feedback and positivity to boost you because there's no internal boost, then it can be taken away in an instant when there's negative feedback or somebody pushing your buttons. So there's that external, internal dynamic. I mean, of course, when we're kids, we're 100% relying on that external feedback from parents and teachers and family and friends because, we're kids. But as adults, um, relying only on external validation That's a slippery slope because then you're giving your power to everybody else to tell you who you are and if you're doing well or not well. And it creates a lot of dissonance on the internal self. So yeah, there's those thoughts. Um, okay, taking a breath. I want to read you some poetry, switching gears, since the last post was about my um, condo building. I wrote a poem. We I decided over the summer, like late summer, that I just wanted to start writing poetry. And I was thinking about like, well, I'll figure out how to write poetry. I've never really written poetry. Um, maybe there's an open mic night somewhere I can read it, and that would be a big uh a big challenge for me. And lo and behold, our little wine and beer bar downstairs started having open mic nights. And so this was the first poem that I read at one of the open mic nights, and it's called It Takes a Village. Ready? It takes a village. I would never have guessed this vertical village in the sky was exactly what I needed, with the most stunning views of my hometown as I watch the clouds and storms roll in from my peaceful perch. I never thought this hustling and bustling menagerie of humanity was the food and healing for my weary soul. The rhythm and hum of this grand dam, once the jewel of Midtown, and now a treasure for the keen eye and love for nostalgia. I was never one to be close with my neighbors back in the horizontal neighborhood days, but there's something about the mutual greetings and chatting with fellow villagers that warms the heart and confirms it's indeed another beautiful day in the neighborhood. When I arrived, I was in the midst of one of my most difficult seasons, freshly unattached and unengaged, sold our home and needed a place to lay my head and keep my kiddo and fur babies safe and sound. I was also in the process of relocating my dad to an assisted space after oncology released him to live out his remaining days as cancer had its way. He wanted to be home for just a little while, to be in the peaceful haven of the vertical village in the sky. He soaked it all in, those stunning views of his hometown, comforting him as he made his peace and said his goodbyes. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I am forever grateful for our neighbors taking the time and interest to ask my kiddo about their day, their classes at school, and helping them feel safe enough to come out of their shell and begin to believe in humanity again. All the while giving me a moment to take a breath and reset myself as I held on by a thread through my grief and overwhelm, adjusting to a vastly different life. And all this by people we barely knew, the kindness of fellow humans living together in the same vertical village in the sky, a backdrop for healing and recovery during the heaviest season of my life. Deep gratitude, my fellow villagers. And I think we're going to end it there. Thanks for indulging. Thanks for hanging out. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. We'll do this again soon. Bye.